Right.
We've got Colby Haberkamp here from Kansas, and if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Born and raised in Northeast Kansas. Most of my life lived just west of Topeka. We're on a uh, small town. Graduated with like 60 in my graduating class, no
Oh,
stoplights.
wow.
Yeah, and if you head west out of town, about 45 minutes to an hour, is Kansas State University. Current owner of House Roofing and myself grew up together, but
Oh, nice.
both went to that university. And then, yeah, I spent some time on the East Coast doing some other work for a few years in DC, rebounded, and now I'm just west of Kansas City. So probably anchored in Northeast Kansas for life moving forward here. But
Well, that's awesome. How long have y'all had the roofing company? Is that
yeah,
all
so
you do is roofing?
we just hit the 5 year mark as a company, and I
Great.
formally came on board last summer in July, right at the start of the month, but had been doing some kind of fractional work in BD for about a half a year before that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I guess one of the things that I wanted to talk about today was the industry in particular. And when we spoke before, you had mentioned that, the market in Kansas. What is it like there right now?
Yeah, I think on the residential side, even though that's become less of our volume. So I guess for context, when my owner started this company, we were probably a 99 to 100% residential company.
Okay.
He slowly inched his way into the commercial market, has a construction management degree from K-State, and really wanted to get into that space. And now we're probably an 80%, 85% kind of growing commercial shop.
Right.
Um, so for the little amount that we see in the residential space, there's a huge contraction across the insurance industry, which I'm sure is no surprise to anybody.
Yeah.
Groups pulling out of the state, hikes on premiums, denies on claims are at an all-time high for sure.
Yeah.
And that's also on the commercial space. And then I think uniquely, Kansas City spans across both Kansas and Missouri, but it's an interesting market if you're not a local group. And there's a lot of positive headwinds for the area. But if you haven't been anchored here for a long time or you're not familiar with the local market, we're seeing really large general contractors struggle to break in here on work where they've had success
Yeah.
elsewhere. Excuse me.
Yeah. I was actually I had a guy on from Texas earlier, and there's their issues, and I'm sure these are probably similar. Is the margins really have shrunk over the last couple of years because the
Mhm.
competition's gotten higher and the work's gotten a little bit lesser, as compared to 3 or 4 years ago. Are you seeing similar things going on there with just the margins in general and just your overhead costs, so your insurance and everything? And it's a problem nationwide, I think.
Yeah, I think as a whole, we just expect insurance to keep increasing. Like, unfortunately, it's just something we're going to plan for and I
Right.
guess be ready for. I think within certain sectors of the market, we've definitely seen those margins shrink significantly. We've even seen groups pull back from specific industries that they've operated in for a long time because it's just not worth the squeeze. So, a
Yeah.
good example would be the multifamily market here in Kansas City has soared for the past few years. Our rent rates are really solid. It's an affordable market a lot of people are moving into, and the build honestly can't keep up with the demand that's needed. But that being said, there are groups that have built there historically, and there's so much competition that they're pulling back at the GC level. But even for us as roofers, we're seeing 15 groups from 3 states away bid sometimes stuff that we never expected, in Topeka, Kansas, to see 20 roofers show up for a
A
local bid
bid.
has never
Yeah.
been that way. So.
Yeah. Exactly. And are y'all just doing? Is that in the residential space or the commercial space more so?
This is all, at least what I'm talking about right now, is commercial focused.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So are you doing the TPO roofing, or is that what you're focused on mainly?
We do a lot of TPO. We're also doing a lot of standing seam metal roofing
Okay.
right now. But we do a little bit of everything. Still do a lot of shingle, EPDM occasionally, even though that's kind of gone to the wayside, and then a little bit of PVC for restaurants or otherwise.
Right. Um, do you find who's your supplier out there? Who y'all using?
We have a pretty tight relationship with the ABC group in town. Just there's an individual there that works really well with us and has advocated for us for years. Shingle
Mm,
side, we have a supplier we use the majority of the time too, who's kind of been over backwards to keep our prices as static as they can. Um, and then yeah, we're familiar with like the Beacons of the world as well too. They've
right.
bid some stuff out.
Well, I tell you, ABC, 'cause that's really their, you know, where they really excel at is they find that one rep that goes in and takes care of you and supplies you with what you need, and it's a tight knit relationship, and that's that's what the suppliers are big on, and that's a really good thing. Are you seeing a lot of swings in the actual manufacturers pricing?
I'd say around tariffs, tariff time a few months ago, and maybe a little bit on the material side, we've seen a shift, but I would say maybe we were just primed for it or expecting it. It wasn't as drastic as we expected. Now, I will say, like, I think part of the reason we've seen a metal uptick, and I'm sure Caleb Browner would back me up on this, that we've seen that uptick is just like it wasn't as costly
Right.
to do some of the metal roofing as it has been historically.
Um, so with your daily operation, what seems to be the most challenging part of with everything going on with technology and like you said, the influx of out-of-state contractors and everything going on there that's making it easier for them to kind of get into y'all's markets and expand. What is your biggest, I guess, pain point?
I think right now for us, it's just prioritization of where to spend our time and what markets to spend our time in.
Okay.
Somebody that's you know, growing, but growing at what we feel to be a responsible pace. We have to take a hard look if we're going to bid stuff like large industrial projects for groups, because if there's, big box groups that can go buy 3 trailer loads worth of material at a fraction of the price, then we're going to get beat up pretty quickly in comparison to even if we have a great labor rate,
Yeah.
and understanding of the locality. So, um, I mean, biggest challenge is just driving that relationship over cost at the end of the day. And some groups
Yeah.
are going to always go bottom line, and some people don't want to deal with the headache. And we're just really leaning into those relationships that we have or that are nurturing.
Yeah, developing the relationship. I mean, I find issues, I've heard that there's been a lot of issues with suppliers really bouncing around and manufacturers bouncing around a lot of different prices lately. And I'm sure it's from the tariffs and the unknown, but they hiked them up a lot, expecting tariffs to be more than they were. And then when they weren't, they readjusted them and made some really good deals to a lot of people. So thus increased a lot of the competition and bidding, estimating, and everything that goes into that. Um, I mean, when you're doing this, are y'all just taking a really dissected approach to where you spend your time on these projects and what projects?
Yeah, I think a year ago it was let's bid everything that we possibly can. We had hired a seasoned commercial estimator who was pretty proficient, especially on the TPO side, and had come from a large national group that just
Yeah,
was looking for change of pace, a little more autonomy, a group
yeah,
she could grow with. Um, and now we're quickly learning. There are certain groups you probably just don't want to work with.
yeah,
And then, B, there are certain markets that are maybe not the best fit in the world for us. Could we still do it? Yeah. Can we do a great job? Sure. But when I'm looking at things where we cut our entire profit margin off of a job and we're still getting beat,
yeah. You
um,
can do that.
there's something questionable there. But I also think that's indicative of the market. Like, I think there are people that are buying business just to stay alive right now. And I
Right.
think we'll see a contraction across the board on just the number of companies in the space because
That stay in it.
there are groups that are hurting. They're just trying to stay alive right now and pay
Yeah,
their.
it's the sustainability, right?
Yeah,
Being able to sustain it long term is really, and you have these guys that come in and they lowball everything, and it cuts jobs out for you guys, but sometimes they end up causing more problems than they fix, and it just the contractors aren't happy, and it causes one mess after another, and then you guys get called in to clean it up. You're more reliable people that they can count on. So, and on one hand, it helps long term, but on the other hand, the short term, it makes it kind of a mess for you guys. We all have to scramble as well. Um, what would you say? I mean, at what rate of growth do you think you're at, and you're trying to get to over the next 3 to 5 years? Where do you think it's going? Where do you see it going?
We keep just hammering over the head. I feel like every time I have a conversation with Caleb, our owner, it's just that responsible growth is the mantra. Like, let's not overextend ourselves and taking a really hard look at what that looks like. And sometimes, unfortunately, that's saying no to a first-time job with a group we've never worked with so that we land on the right job. It's a happy song and dance because I think the first job is the hardest to land with any.
Right. When you
Um,
say a first time group, you're talking about the GCs.
Most of the time, at least in the new construction market, but even a large property management group, if they've never
Yeah.
used you, I mean, and it goes for private owners, I guess, too, in the commercial space. Like, if they don't know who you are, why roll the dice?
Right, exactly. And then you have, certain GCs pay on time, certain GCs don't pay on time. Some of them are late.
Hmm.
And you have that, that issue depending on who you're dealing with. And then, you have private owners and property managers who sometimes are really good about paying, and then sometimes they're really bad, and you just don't know what you're going to get if you haven't used them before. So it kind of makes it a coin toss going in, and you're not quite sure how it's going to go. So
For
it's
sure.
a mix.
It's a mixed bag. And I think to answer your question a little more directly on what we expect for growth, like from a volume perspective, maybe we're not doing as many jobs. Maybe we're just doing some larger ones or, with the right groups consistently. Because I can
Right,
look at one particular vendor who, we've probably bid 30 projects for and we've done 25 of them. That's a relationship we want to keep. Um,
right,
and then top line revenue, we'll double what we did last year, but I think, with a smaller number, that's easier to do. But also in the coming years, like, yeah, we'd love to double that again. But then we have to take a hard look at have we staffed correctly? Is everybody happy? Quality hasn't taken a hit. All those things that you're probably thinking about no matter what type of business you're running.
right. And how are you getting your leads? Are your GCs and your marketing? What approaches are y'all taking for those things to try and create those type of relationships and develop them?
It's been a heavy pound the pavement kind of back to basics process. I think there's so much noise right now, and there's a lot of great tools that can be leveraged, but especially for large commercial projects, people can really kind of read through the BS pretty
Yeah.
quickly. And back to the same thing, if they don't know you, it's really getting that first sit down for coffee or lunch where they've shaken your
Right.
hand. And I think, I don't know, I continue to tell people I just don't think that's going to go away. I've leaned into some networking groups and they've been okay for like starting conversations, but until we have that coffee lunch meeting at their office where they have now met me and I'm a real person and I can talk to
Right.
specifics, we're not going to get anywhere. So,
Right.
I'm sold every day on people that want to buy our business or increase my SEO or whatever they're trying
Right.
to pitch to me. I'm like, that's great, but we don't need that. Nobody really cares what my SEO is if they've never met me in person here. So.
Right. And I mean, I guess it really is a mixed bag when you look at the overall industry and where you're trying to get, because those big jobs that you had those deep relationships with, you're getting 25 out of 30 jobs that they're bidding. Those are the ones long term that you want to keep, right? Those are the ones that are tried and true. But on the same hand, you don't want to miss out on a lot of stuff coming in that's new either.
Right.
So it's a hard balance. It's a balancing act, actually, to put it mildly. Um, what are you being in the position you're in, because you're on all sides of the operations? Do you do the estimating too?
No, I'm probably dangerous enough to look at it, know if we're really far off, and kind of keep checks on who's important for us, when are
Right.
these coming in, ask some questions if we need, etc. But yeah,
So you're more the
that's
PR guy.
yeah, growth, operations, a little bit of finance, HR, I
Where's
guess, wrapped in.
Right, right. Where, what would you say is like your biggest frustration, I guess, then, with everything being what it is? I mean, some of my guests say it's safety, insurance, your overhead, your turnover with your employees. Do y'all have issues with that?
No, employee wise. they say don't employ people you're really close with, but we've had success with that. And we've used a lot of the same kind of crew structures that we've known for years. So, if those went away, we'd probably have a lot more headache
Right.
on that side of the house. I think honestly, the biggest problem for us is like trying to do the jobs of multiple people without being in a place where we feel like we should pull the trigger or that we have the right person to put in that position
Okay.
to continue to do delegation and just like growing in the right way. But with not doing that comes less overhead, which makes us a little more nimble and able to continue to operate in various ways like we have historically. So, um, I don't know. It's probably a lot of the same problems, not specific to the roofing industry that we struggle with, but
Yeah.
I do think um, just having the ability to prioritize the time and be available, but also busy. So available
Right.
for people when they need us right now because they don't need us till they need us. And
Right. And then when they do,
also, yeah.
it's
And
right
then
now.
having a backlog that we feel safe that everything's going to be good for the next 6, 12, 18 months, whatever that looks like.
And how do you guys create your backlog? What do you do to go in there and try and get that sustainable backlog going?
I think diversification of channels, like we're kind of hinting on a few different things here. We're talking new construction, property management, more of a focus on just ensuring that you have multiple lines of business humming at the same time. Because I think in the new construction world for us, 2 months is on 2 months late is on time, 6 months late
Right.
is pretty standard right now.
Yeah.
So we just can't account for that to be a hard date. We just have to know we have some flexibility built in, especially if it's a hard project and we want a particular crew on it. And then
Right.
management's like, let's usually get to it as fast as we can when they need it and they'll allow us to, and then gap fill with smaller residential and commercial work. And, maybe even some federal work for us. We're just dipping our toes in that space, but just ensuring like,
The regulation is such a pain on the
yeah,
federal work. We used to deal with the airports down in Texas back when I was roofing with the Antex, and the airports, anything federal was an absolute nightmare. It was just crazy. It was more hassle than it was worth almost, even on your really big jobs. It never seemed to fail. Um, what exactly are y'all using any tech right now inside your business to help you grow, or are you trying to utilize it at a minimum? I mean, where do you
yeah.
think it's going?
We're an AccuLynx heavy shop, which is probably not unique. Decent number of roofing organizations use that. We've used the plugins with our suppliers and some of the estimating processes, which has streamlined things a lot.
Yeah.
I think from an accounting perspective, we've tried to get more nimble in fixing that because those aren't perfect from a connectivity standpoint. Um,
Is it your workflow integration? Is that where you're having the issue?
Yeah, and we have a lot of issues around currently the one that's given us a little bit of headache is the difference around taxation in the various states that we operate in. So
Okay.
some states don't tax on labor, some do. Um, you have to kind of think about how we're going to mark that and code that, and they're just not really set up to be that nimble.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
that is a major issue because especially if you're doing multi-state. So how often do y'all go out of state?
well, being on the border with Missouri and Kansas, we're between the two quite a bit, and then um, Nebraska and Iowa are not that far for us, and then we venture down into Oklahoma and even Arkansas occasionally, but that's usually at the request of an existing client. So
Right. So your accounting and your workflows on the back end are your biggest headache?
I would say t today, from a tech standpoint, um, sure. I think like anybody else, I'm playing with AI. I'm kind of starting to establish like a bot that might follow us around and act more as like a repository for information and
Yeah.
such. I'm just I know we're probably not behind the curve in our space or our industry, but
No.
all over the place, if you compared us to every other industry, we definitely are.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, I mean, that's the company that I work for. That's what we do is implement AI. We kind of bridge the gap between where y'all are at and where you want to be because you don't quite know how to utilize the AI tools out there to get there. So we do that quite a bit. And so the roofing industry, the construction industry, there's a handful of industries that are way behind the curve and are just kind of stepping in and waking up to that market. But there's others. So you guys are definitely not behind that yet, because most of the people that you guys work with, y'all don't want to. You're not ready to take that next level into that world. Unfortunately, it's coming faster than anybody expected. But
Sure.
we have a lot of stuff that could help you with your backside stuff, and that's kind of our specialty. But as far as the industry goes as a whole, I see people having the biggest problems on their backflow and just like their general operations, trying to make things more easy, more fluent. And
Sure.
so it's less they have to have somebody come in, and it gets down to the tech side of it, where all the workflows and all these things are running like they're supposed to in the background, thus saving people like you all the time that it takes to deal with that. And it's a huge burden and stress off of the company, but it's also you're stepping into a new wave of how things are going to be happening. And I guess if you're not first, you're last. So you try to get
Yeah, that's
you
true.
try to get ahead. My boys watch Talladega Nights all the time, so
Oh yeah,
yeah,
very familiar.
yeah.
Very
So
familiar.
I never do. They're not incorrect though. You're not first, you're last though.
No,
But
that's true.
yeah. Well, other than your accounting, the taxation from state to state, your basically your financing side of it, your back end workflows. What other issues do you see having the biggest, headaches on a not so much a day to day, but a week to week, a month problem? Where do you see that
As in regards to tech or just generally?
in general?
Um, it's a good question. I mean, as mentioned earlier, like prioritization is always going to be the tough. Like, where do we spend our time? What bug do we try to squash today versus in 3 weeks? Um, so for us, that's just kind of simply deducing what's happening every day. I also think there's a very happy medium here on like what we take on to keep us competitive, but
Right,
also stay in our lane. So people are always going to ask for more, and if you'll take it on, whether that's general contractor, property manager, private owner, if you can pick up more work for them, you become incrementally more valuable, and you can
more
wrap that
valuable,
work
right?
into one thing. But if you're, you know, what is it? Jack of all trades, master of none sort of situation, you quickly become a generalist who has incurred a lot of headache that may have been unnecessary. So it's like, what
Right,
do we do to keep the relationships, keep everybody happy, maybe go outside of our lane to help a particular customer
right.
company
Stay in your lane as much as
also,
possible to reap the most reward out of that lane.
right,
Yeah, because you get spread too thin
right.
when you try to do too much, because it just ends up costing you more than you thought, and or there's another headache or something else you didn't know, and it just keeps on adding up, and that becomes an issue. So yeah, I understand what you're saying there. If you could find a system that helps you kind of put that at the forefront, like on a quarterly basis. Like where's the best place to mobilize our stuff? Where's the best place to pinpoint where our business needs to be able to grow and expand and increase our revenue. Would something like that be something that y'all would look at or find interesting to keep up with?
Definitely. I think we just don't have enough time to dig into the data points, and we
There's a
probably,
lot.
yeah, short of having a particular relationship and saying, hey, in this area we've done well because ABC referred us to
Right,
XYZ. To be able to even pinpoint our data points by like geography or et cetera and say, hey, we've done really well here. Did we realize that? Or why are we winning in this area versus another? Even municipality to municipality for us
right.
is can look pretty different. So
Yeah, it looks really different than like if you're commercial and property management. So that would look a lot different. Um, so what you're talking about some things that so I do this podcast because I enjoy it, and I've been so involved with roofing and construction since I was 17. So that's great, but the company that I work for Centra, it really dives into helping make roofers' lives, construction just better. We have a team that puts together all these things that you would need. So they like dive into your business. We figure out how to, for instance, like we were talking about, pinpoint what areas you want to be at or where you need to be in the next 3 months that are really where the workflow is going to be, right? Not the back end workflow, but your upfront workflow, right? So we need to be in municipals, we need to be in federal, we need to be in private sector right now. Like it tells you all these things, and then the tax stuff from state to state. That's an easy one. We have a team that an AI team that goes on the back end and does integrations, and what they do I can't even explain because it's they dive in so deep. It's kind of awesome, and when they come out and you see it, you're just like, wow, um, I didn't even know that was possible. But it's just something that, if y'all wanted to look at it, I can look at it with you, but it's not a big deal. It might be a good fit, it might not be a good fit, I don't know. But it's something that we could look at. But there again, this is a problem that, what the answers you're looking for to expand the company's growth and to continue y'all's personal growth as a company in general. Um, AI is there to kind of help, and a lot of people get confused with the fact that, or they're scared of it, I guess, or they don't know how to integrate it if they did have it.
Yeah.
And that's where we kind of come in, is we integrate it, and we have the team that implements it. So if you wanted to talk about that and dive into that, we could definitely schedule that on a private conversation, of course, and do that.
Definitely.
And
Yeah, definitely.
it has been an absolute pleasure having you on, Colby. I really appreciate your insight. Is if you had to talk to anybody else who was interested in getting into this market or starting a roofing business, what advice would you give them? Other than, of course, don't. Um, but because I had some people say don't,
Yeah.
just because they get so overloaded and there's a lot to it. But what advice would you give them on your expertise and your achievements?
I think a couple of main themes that, I can't take all the credit for us hitting the 5 year mark here. A lot of
Right.
that goes to Caleb, our owner, but like the the ability to realize you don't have to knock everything out in one day and that it will be a slow burn. I think we live in a
Right.
huge, day and age of instant gratification. If it doesn't work in a year or two, I'm done. Some of these
Right.
relationships and just getting people to take us seriously have taken him just being around 5 years. Not even necessarily that I've built the relationship over the past year. It's like if the company is in good standing, there's some specific projects we can point to. And then I think the other thing is you really do need that practical person if you're going to take a shot at this. You're going to need somebody with some field knowledge. There's been a ton of venture capital money thrown into this space, and a lot of people have fallen on their face. I think the SBA statistics are like 96% of roofing companies fail in the first
Yeah.
5 years. And so if you don't know what you're doing, yeah, there's a lot of good rhetoric out there right now, and money can fix a lot of things, and marketing can prop up a lot of old businesses. But like buying an HVAC company or a roofing company and thinking you're going to have it whipped with somebody that has no field experience is
It's
is
not going to
pretty tough. You got to
happen.
have somebody on your team that's
No, it's
this
just
is
not going to
it.
happen. I 100% agree with you.
Yeah. At least for the long term, you got to have somebody that can kind of look through everything and do a gut check or say, oh, no, we got to stay away from that. That's going to be really bad. So, if we didn't have that, if we didn't have someone like that or continuing to build a team like that, we wouldn't be here today.
Well, that's a fantastic take on it. I really appreciate your insight and you joining us today. It's been fantastic. You've enlightened us a little bit too on just the operation and for companies that are starting out or trying to start out or in that second year, everything you say kind of makes sense, and it really you've got to be patient. You've got to develop those relationships, but you've also had to have somebody out there that knows what they're doing and can
Yep.
operate that field. So that those are really important. Important. So we thoroughly enjoyed having you on today, and I hope you come back.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great. It's been
No
fun.
problem.